Part 1. Imagine opening your computer one morning and finding a message that nobody, not programmers, not investigators, not even the people who received it, has ever been able to fully explain. It wasn't the last internet mystery. It was one of the first. This is a file that was never closed. Welcome to Mystery Cache. Every file has a story. The internet has existed for barely half a century, but it has already produced its own folklore. Strange broadcasts, anonymous codes, corners of the web some people still won't search for. A small number of cases never get solved, not because no one looked, but because looking wasn't enough. Tonight we're opening 5 of those files. 5 case numbers. 5 different kinds of silence. Let's start with the one that made internet mystery a genre of its own. Before we continue, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. With that said, let's get back to the video. Case File 1. Cicada 3301. On January 4, 2012, an anonymous post appeared on the image board 4chan. It was a plain black image with white text, and it made an unusual claim that its creator was searching for highly intelligent people and had built a test to find them. Hidden inside the image was a message, invisible to the eye, extracted using a basic steganography tool. It pointed to a web address which led to a countdown timer, and when it hit 0, a puzzle unfolded spanning cryptography, obscure books, bootable Linux disks, and physical posters stapled to lampposts on 4 continents. By the time investigators pieced together the full 2012 puzzle, they'd used steganography, classical and modern ciphers, a structure called the Kabbalah's Tree of Life, and an obscure 1904 poetry collection. Whoever built this did not build it for casual solvers. The puzzle's name, Cicada 3301, became attached to the organization behind it, though no one has ever confirmed who that organization actually is. A second puzzle launched in January 2013, leading solvers to coordinates in 8 locations across 4 countries. A third round in 2014 centered on a book called Liber Primus, Latin for first book, written almost entirely in an invented rune alphabet. Thousands of people have spent years trying to decode it since. Page after page still resists every known method. Somewhere in those symbols may be nothing at all, or everything its creators ever wanted to say, still waiting for the right mind to unlock it. Then, silence. A cryptic clue surfaced on Twitter in 2016. Cicada 3301 posted one final signed message in April 2017, warning that any future puzzle without that same signature should be considered fake. Since then, nothing confirmed. So who was behind it? Some point to the cypherpunk movement, a network of privacy activists and cryptographers. Others suspect intelligence agency recruitment, citing real precedent in wartime code-breaking and modern puzzle-based hiring. There is no verified evidence tying Cicada 3301 to any agency or company. Several people who completed the puzzles say they were contacted privately afterward and told to stay quiet. None has ever gone fully public. The identity of Cicada 3301 remains unconfirmed. Liber Primus remains substantially undecoded. And every January 4th for over a decade, a portion of the internet has quietly wondered if the cicada might sing again. It hasn't, not yet. Close this file and open the next one, because the deeper you look into internet mysteries, the more you realize some of them were never meant to be solved by outsiders at all. Case File 2, Erratas. Unlike the other cases in this video, this one doesn't begin with documented evidence. It begins with a rumor that spread across the internet, and a question no one has been able to answer conclusively. On November 25, 2015, an anonymous 4chan post described a conversation with a woman at a disorganized temporary factory job. While clearing out storage, she found a box labeled with an unfamiliar word, Erratas. Her supervisor warned her never to mention it again, or she'd be flagged and quietly let go. That anecdote should have disappeared within a day. Instead, it didn't. A month later, a second anonymous poster claimed to have worked in IT on the East Coast between 2000 and 2010 and asked if anyone else had heard of a sketchy HR-linked program by the same name. A reply followed, describing Erratas as an algorithm that supposedly gave outside companies unrestricted access to employee records, and naming 3 real, recognizable corporations as alleged users. There is no verified evidence that any of those companies used a system by this name, no leaked documents, no whistleblower testimony that is held up to scrutiny. And yet the story kept growing, pulled forward by people who insisted they'd seen a small piece of it themselves. In January 2016, the trail took a strange turn into music. Coded messages claimed to be hidden inside obscure YouTube uploads, and a linked Twitter account posted an unsettling image tied to an unrelated criminal case, one some corners of the community unofficially adopted as the face of the mystery. None of these threads connect to each other in any verifiable way. There's no code to crack here, no cipher waiting for a key, only a rumor, spreading person to person, each believer swearing they'd brushed up against something real. Then, in April 2016, something happened that even skeptics find hard to dismiss entirely. Threads discussing Erratas began disappearing from 4chan. Users who kept posting about it reported getting banned, some, they claimed, under copyright complaints that made no sense for the content involved. Believers took that as confirmation. Skeptics point out that 4chan moderators remove threads for all kinds of mundane reasons, and that a deleted thread proves nothing on its own. There is no confirmed algorithm, no confirmed company, only a decade of people insisting they got close enough to something to get burned by it. Whatever Erratas is, it has never been proven, and it has never been fully disproven either, which is, in its own way, worse. Case File 3, Markovian Parallax Denigrate. Before social media, before web forums as we know them, there was Usenet, a decentralized network of discussion boards running on dial-up connections, used by a fraction of the population that had internet access at all in the mid-1990s. On August 5, 1996, hundreds of nonsense posts flooded Usenet's newsgroups, boards with nothing in common, all carrying blocks of text reading like unrelated words stitched together. One surviving example strings together words like jitterbugging, McKinley, and Newtonian, with no grammar connecting them. Yet across nearly every post, 3 words kept resurfacing: Markovian, Parallax, Denigrate. The name investigators gave the whole phenomenon, even though Markovian barely appeared in some of the affected newsgroups at all. At the time, administrators dismissed the posts as spam. A nuisance, not a puzzle. For over a decade, that was where the story ended. Nobody was chasing an answer. That changed in 2012, when a journalist revisited the case and gave it new life, dubbing it the Internet's oldest unsolved mystery. That reporting connected one of the only surviving message headers to a real name, a woman who at the time had become a controversial and widely reported figure in an unrelated federal case. When contacted, she denied any connection to the 1996 posts. There is no verified evidence linking her to the messages. Later research has suggested the actual email address may have belonged to a different person entirely, a college student whose identity was mistakenly conflated with hers over years of retelling. So what were the messages? The leading theory is almost disappointingly ordinary. An early spam or trolling campaign, possibly generated using a Markov chain, a method of stringing words together by probability rather than meaning. Researchers disagree on how much weight to give that explanation. What's certain is this: nobody has ever stepped forward and confirmed authorship. Nobody has definitively cracked a hidden meaning inside the text, if one exists at all. 3 decades on, the strangest thing about the Internet's oldest mystery may be how ordinary its answer probably is, and how long that hasn't been enough to end the story. Some mysteries fade because the Internet decides they were never that interesting to begin with. Others fade because everyone involved would prefer they stayed buried. Case File 4, Lake City Quiet Pills. In July 2009, a Reddit account posted a short, somber message. A friend of theirs, an elderly Redditor known for blunt, provocative posts about politics and violence, had died. The account making the announcement was new. Its explanation of how the two men knew each other was vague, something about serving together years earlier. Investigators traced a separate, older account on the site FARC with a disturbing tagline. It offered quiet pills for permanent rest, language echoing a real U.S. Army ammunition plant. Reading between the lines, quiet pills sounded like a euphemism for bullets, and the account appeared connected, through shared login details, to both the deceased user and the one announcing his death. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. If you thought this was wild, wait till you see what's coming next. That sent amateur investigators to an associated website, one whose hidden source code revealed postings seeking multilingual people willing to travel abroad and deliver unspecified packages. To a community already primed to see a pattern that read like a recruitment notice for private contractors, or worse. And in January 2010, when a senior Hamas military commander was assassinated in Dubai in an operation later attributed by multiple governments to intelligence operatives, some investigators noticed the assassination's timing lined up with activity on the mystery site. The theory that followed, that Lake City Quiet Pills was somehow connected to that real-world killing, spread fast. There is no verified evidence tying the website to that assassination. Researchers and independent debunkers who've revisited the case say the timing connection is almost certainly coincidence, amplified by a community that wanted the darkest possible explanation to be true. And there are real inconsistencies that argue against the entire narrative being genuine in the first place. Inconsistent spelling patterns between accounts that should have belonged to the same person, and a site that, according to several later investigators, appears to have generated most of its traffic from the mystery itself, rather than any real operation. By the time researchers went looking for definitive answers, key evidence had disappeared behind expired hosting and dead links. Was it real? Was it an elaborate hoax designed purely to go viral? Nobody who could answer that question has ever done so on the record. The most honest answer, over a decade later, is that we don't know, and the site itself no longer exists to ask. Case File 5, a 858DE. In July 2011, a Reddit account began posting daily blocks of hexadecimal code to a subreddit with an almost unreadable name, with no explanation and no replies to anyone. For almost a year, virtually nobody noticed. Then, in 2012, a curious user asked publicly whether the post meant anything at all. The question drew attention, and a second subreddit formed specifically to crack the code. Amateur cryptographers archiving every post and testing every decoding method they could think of. They found real results. Some hex strings decoded into ASCII art, including a crude drawing of Stonehenge. Others produced fragments of published books and image data requiring layered decoding steps. This wasn't random noise. Somebody was deliberately encoding real information. In August 2015, after 4 years of near-total silence, an account appeared in the Solving subreddit that responded cryptically, and only after its own message had been decoded, to confirm that the purpose behind the project could not be disclosed. It added one more detail. The project would end when its purpose was either revealed or independently discovered by the community trying to crack it. Neither of those things has definitively happened. In March of a following year, the subreddit briefly displayed a message declaring the project concluded, inviting followers to unsubscribe. Then, in 2018, after another long silence, new coded posts appeared again, as if the conclusion had never quite been final. There is no verified evidence identifying who runs the account. Some believe the mystery is already cracked, and the truth is just smaller than the speculation. Others believe the most important messages are still sitting undecoded. What's certain is this: somebody built this. It wasn't random. And whoever they are, they were watching the subreddit closely enough to know exactly when to respond, and exactly how much to reveal. 5 case files, 5 different kinds of silence. Some contested, some disputed, some still open. What connects them isn't cryptography or conspiracy. It's the simple fact that a gap in information always gets filled by something, and if the truth doesn't fill it fast enough, speculation will. None of these cases were solved by a single person working alone. Every real breakthrough came from a community. Strangers coordinating in public, sharing partial answers until something clicked. Draw your own conclusions about which of tonight's 5 files you believe. The evidence is still out there for anyone willing to look. Some files are eventually closed. Others remain open, waiting for someone to uncover the truth. If you're the kind of person who needed to know how each of these ended, subscribe. There's another file waiting to be opened. Until then, stay curious.